Morgan Freeman was born in 1937 in Memphis, Tennessee, into a world where opportunity was scarce and survival was the primary rhythm of daily life. His early years were shaped less by stability and more by movement, as his family shifted between places in search of work and security. His mother labored in domestic and healthcare jobs, while his father worked as a barber, both struggling to sustain a household in an era defined by economic hardship and racial segregation in the American South. Freeman's earliest memories, as he later described them, were not of comfort but of waiting for food, for attention, for circumstances to improve. Childhood for him was not a sheltered phase, but an introduction to responsibility and endurance. When his parents moved north for work, he was left in the care of relatives in Mississippi, an experience that shaped his sense of belonging and independence. The emotional distance of separation, combined with the realities of poverty, created a quiet resilience in him. Even as a child, he was observing life with unusual seriousness, absorbing the dynamics of silence, absence, and expectation. School offered limited escape, but it was also where he first encountered the possibility of performance. A small role in a school play became an unexpected turning point, giving him a sense of voice and presence that contrasted sharply with the invisibility he often felt in daily life. That moment planted a seed that would remain with him for decades, long before it could be fully realized. Growing up in the shadow of segregation and limited choice, Freeman's adolescence unfolded in the segregated American South, where opportunity was heavily restricted by social systems that dictated access, education, and mobility. Schools for Black children were underfunded and overcrowded, and expectations were often constrained by circumstance rather than ability. In this environment, ambition required imagination more than permission. Freeman grew up learning to navigate spaces that were not designed to include him fully, developing an awareness of limitation that was both practical and psychological. Despite these conditions, he gravitated toward activities that allowed expression. Drama became one of the few spaces where identity could expand beyond social boundaries. On stage, even in small school productions, he discovered that presence could alter perception. The act of performing offered a kind of temporary liberation from the restrictions of daily life. It was not escape in the traditional sense, but transformation within constraints. At the same time, the weight of reality never disappeared. Family instability, economic hardship, and the expectations placed on young Black men in mid-century America all shaped his understanding of adulthood long before he reached it. These experiences did not create a linear path forward, but rather a foundation of persistence. What emerged from this period was not a defined ambition, but a steady familiarity with uncertainty, and an ability to continue moving despite it. Early adulthood, service, and the search for direction. As he entered adulthood, Freeman faced the same central challenge that had defined his youth: how to build a stable future without financial security. With limited resources for higher education, he briefly turned toward the United States Air Force, seeing it as a possible path toward structure and opportunity. The discipline of military life offered order, but it did not align with his deeper instincts. Though he trained and engaged with technical responsibilities, he eventually recognized that his sense of identity lay elsewhere. Leaving the Air Force marked a turning point that was less about rejection and more about recognition. He moved toward acting with no guarantee of success, entering a field known for uncertainty and rejection. The decision required him to accept instability as a permanent condition rather than a temporary phase. This shift defined much of his early adult life. He relocated across cities, taking whatever work was available: stage roles, background performances, and minor television appearances. Financial insecurity remained constant. There were periods of near poverty where basic needs dictated daily decisions. Yet during this time, he developed the discipline that would later define his career: patience, repetition, and the ability to endure long gaps between meaningful opportunities. Struggles in theater, training, and survival in performance work. Freeman's early acting career was built in the theater, where recognition was limited but craft could be refined. He studied performance seriously, learning how voice, timing, and stillness could carry emotional weight. Unlike the visibility of film, theater demanded consistency without the assurance of fame or financial stability. He performed in small productions, often balancing multiple jobs to sustain himself. Life during this period was defined by scarcity. There were moments when basic needs were difficult to meet, and acting work alone could not provide reliable income. Yet the stage remained a space where he could develop without external validation. Each role, no matter how small, contributed to an evolving understanding of presence and control. He also worked in television and educational programming during this time, gradually becoming recognizable to niche audiences. These roles did not immediately translate into stardom, but they helped establish his voice and demeanor as distinctive qualities. The process was incremental rather than transformative, shaped by repetition rather than breakthroughs. What distinguished this period was not success, but persistence. While many actors left the profession due to instability, Freeman remained. The foundation he built during these years would later support a much later rise to prominence. But at the time, it was simply endurance without certainty of outcome. Breakthrough roles and the arrival of recognition. Freeman's transition into mainstream recognition came later in life than is typical for actors, marked by a series of performances that gradually shifted public perception. A key moment arrived with his role in Street Smart, 1987, where his performance drew critical attention and an Academy Award nomination. This acknowledgement did not immediately redefine his career, but it signaled that his work could no longer be overlooked. Following this, he began receiving roles that utilized his measured delivery and commanding presence. Films such as Driving Miss Daisy and later The Shawshank Redemption positioned him as a figure of emotional steadiness and narrative depth. His performances were characterized by restraint rather than exaggeration, allowing audiences to engage with subtlety rather than spectacle. As recognition grew, so did the expectations placed upon him. He was frequently cast in roles that emphasized wisdom, authority, or moral clarity. While this brought consistency, it also narrowed the range of characters offered to him. Nevertheless, his presence became a defining element of several widely acclaimed films, establishing him as one of the most respected actors of his generation. Cinematic success, cultural presence, and industry demands. As Freeman's career expanded, he became a central figure in major cinematic productions spanning multiple decades. His performances in films such as $1 Million Baby and Invictus reinforced his reputation for portraying characters marked by emotional depth and quiet strength. These roles contributed to both critical acclaim and significant commercial success, placing him among the most recognizable voices in global cinema. Alongside success came increased professional demand. Long filming schedules, international projects, and continuous public engagement required sustained energy and adaptability. Even as he aged, he remained active in demanding roles, often balancing physical limitations with professional expectations. His voice, in particular, became iconic through narration work, extending his influence beyond acting into documentary and storytelling formats. However, the scale of success also introduced complexity. With recognition came pressure to maintain consistency, and with consistency came reduced creative flexibility. Like many long-standing figures in the entertainment industry, he navigated the balance between artistic choice and industry expectation. Despite challenges, his presence remained steady across decades, making him one of the few actors whose career bridged multiple cinematic eras without significant decline in relevance. Marriages, family life, and the strain of absence. Freeman's personal life included 2 marriages that reflected different stages of his career and emotional development. His first marriage began during a period when he was still building his career and had limited financial stability. The relationship included shared responsibilities and the raising of children within a modest household. However, the demands of his profession created long periods of absence, which gradually affected the structure of the relationship. Over time, the tension between ambition and domestic stability became increasingly difficult to manage. His pursuit of acting required travel, irregular schedules, and emotional investment that often extended beyond the home. Eventually, the marriage ended after more than a decade, marking a significant personal transition during a period when his career was beginning to gain traction. His second marriage occurred later, during a phase of greater professional stability and recognition. Initially, it provided a sense of grounding and companionship. However, As his career expanded further, similar challenges emerged. The pressures of fame, distance, and differing personal expectations eventually contributed to the dissolution of the marriage years later. These experiences reflected a recurring tension between public success and private balance, a dynamic that shaped much of his personal narrative: loss, public scrutiny, and physical challenges. In addition to personal relationships, Freeman's life included periods marked by significant challenges and loss. He experienced a serious car accident that resulted in lasting physical effects, including nerve damage and chronic pain that required ongoing management. Recovery was prolonged and incomplete, affecting his mobility and daily comfort. He also faced periods of public scrutiny, including widely reported allegations in later years. These matters were addressed publicly and remained part of broader discussions surrounding his public image, though they did not result in criminal convictions. The experience contributed to a more cautious public presence in subsequent years. Another profound personal loss came with the death of his granddaughter, a tragedy that deeply affected his private life. Such events introduced emotional weight that extended beyond professional identity, reinforcing the distance between public perception and personal reality. Together, these experiences formed a complex layer of resilience, shaped not only by achievement but also by endurance through difficulty, both physical and emotional. Later career, wealth, and evolving public role. In his later career, Freeman continued to work consistently in film, television, and narration. His estimated financial success placed him among the most established figures in Hollywood, though his approach to wealth remained relatively restrained compared to many of his peers. Rather than emphasizing expansion, he focused on stability and selective engagement with projects. He also explored entrepreneurial ventures, including early involvement in digital distribution efforts, some of which did not achieve long-term success. These experiences reflected a willingness to engage with changing industry landscapes, even when outcomes were uncertain. Despite age and physical limitations, he remained active in selective roles, often contributing through narration or supporting performances rather than leading roles. His voice continued to serve as a defining element of his public identity, maintaining cultural relevance across generations. His later years also included a more private lifestyle, with reduced public exposure and greater emphasis on personal space and reflection. Return to roots, personal legacy, and closing perspective. In his later life, Freeman's connection to his Mississippi roots became increasingly central. He invested in land that held personal and historical significance, including efforts to preserve natural environments and support ecological initiatives such as beekeeping. These choices reflected a shift from public ambition to personal grounding. His estate and lifestyle choices emphasized simplicity and continuity rather than expansion. Over time, he reduced material excess and focused more on environments that offered privacy and stability. This phase of life reflected a return to foundational values shaped in childhood, including resilience, patience, and connection to land and memory. Ultimately, his legacy extends beyond awards and financial success. It includes a long career shaped by persistence, a body of work recognized across generations, and a personal history marked by both achievement and loss. His journey reflects the complexity of long-term endurance in a demanding industry, where public recognition often exists alongside private challenge. In the broader view, his life illustrates how success can emerge gradually, shaped not by single moments but by sustained commitment over time. Enduring presence, reflection, and the quiet weight of time. In the later stage of Morgan Freeman's life, time itself becomes the most defining presence around him, not as an abstract idea but as something physically and emotionally felt in every movement, every pause, and every decision to continue working. After decades in an industry that constantly demands visibility, he moves with a quieter rhythm, shaped by both age and experience. The urgency that once drove auditions, travel, and constant performance has softened into something more deliberate. Work is no longer pursued as survival, but as choice, and that shift subtly changes the texture of his presence in the public eye. Reflection becomes more central in this phase, not as nostalgia but as an acknowledgement of accumulation, of roles, losses, relationships, and moments that cannot be separated from one another. The boundaries between professional identity and personal history blur because both have been lived intensely and over a long span of time. What remains is a sense of continuity rather than conclusion, as if each chapter leads naturally into the next without a final point of arrival. There is also the physical reality of aging, which introduces limitations that earlier success never required him to confront. Pain, recovery, and adaptation are now part of daily structure, shaping how he moves through the world. Yet even within these constraints, he maintains presence, measured, steady, and recognizable. The voice that once carried fictional characters through triumph and tragedy now carries lived experience, giving weight to even the simplest expression. Public perception often frames him as a figure of authority or calm wisdom, but behind that image is a life defined by persistence through uncertainty rather than effortless stability. The final impression is not one of perfection or resolution, but of continuation, a long career and a long life still unfolding, shaped by endurance, reflection, and the quiet understanding that meaning is not something completed, but something carried forward.